Welcome to the adventures of self. Conversations with ordinary and extraordinary people as they explore what it means to be self-expressed. Come on in. Join the adventure.
So welcome, Mr. SF Banks, to the Adventures of Self.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Taylor. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So first things first, I think I didn't get into this before when we spoke. I mean, your name's Shaun, but you go by SF. So I'm curious, and I see a big SF behind you. I don't know if that means you're from San Francisco's. You're what are you, 49ers fan, or it's just a nickname?
It started as just a nickname. One of my older brothers would call me SF, and I don't know where he got that from, but he would call me SF. And then my dad actually lives out in San Francisco now, and I kind of just adopted the nickname, if you will. I love Barry Bonds when he was playing, right? So it all kind of worked together, right? And I wear this SF hat, and it really, and I made the acronym, if you will, stand for something. And so it stands for, Shaun's free. And
Nice.
Free, just free from, negative thoughts, free from anything I don't want to be bound to, really. Right. And just reminding myself that I have a choice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's great to hear, because sometimes you hear nicknames and, they just like stand for something. And it's nice for you to really claim that for yourself. And I love that sentiment, that you're free, right? Because,
That's right.
On some level, you determine your level of freedom. I mean, we have
Right.
our sort of things that we're emboldened to, whether it's, mortgages or car payments or whatever, but there's a sense that we have a choice in what it is we choose to be tied to, and how we define freedom. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that it definitely is about how you define freedom, right? And what, just what that is to you. So, some people will say, well, I don't want to have a job because if I have a job, then I'm not free. Or another person will say, I love my 9 to 5, and not having a job wouldn't allow me the freedoms I have. And so I think it's just really a matter of, like you said, their definition of freedom.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think I've brought it up here on the podcast before, but it reminds me always of the story of Nelson Mandela, right? Who, was put away in prison for like 27 years,
Right.
Ostensibly to take away his freedom. And he said, well, you can't decide that for me. Like
Right.
I'm free in my mind, even though there are four walls around me. I'm free in my mind. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful testament to that concept that, it goes to this very idea. It's like, because I think it goes to what you're trying to do for the kids you work with. It's like, being I really, see you in projects you've done and the work you're creating is, like consciously stepping into a role model, position, like a leader of a community, to be responsible for helping to guide children in all sorts of ways to be men, to be women, to grow into their own sense of integrity and freedom is a real, responsibility. And hats off to you for that.
Right. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility because there's very little margin for error, right? Especially when you talk about like the summer camps or things where we're, hands-on, if you will, just working with the kids in person. Very little margin for error. And it is a lot of work. The thing is that, I first of all, never wanted to do it. I never had a passion to work with youth at all. I mean, I was totally the opposite direction. I wanted to be in business, and kind of just work in that field. And what I noticed was there was such a big need for youth being developed. And I looked around and I realized, kind of what you take for granted, in the sense that you think that there's all these programs out here to help kids, and you think there's all this stuff going on. And what I noticed that there wasn't. Even in 2000s, there was not enough programs. And so I said, okay, well, maybe there's a way to do both, to be able to make a good living and be able to help people in the process.
Yeah, I mean, that sense of like then, but still like the sense of going into to work with youth. Did you have kids at the time, or that come afterwards?
It came afterwards,
Yeah.
actually. I didn't have kids when I started working with youth, which is part of the reason why I wasn't interested. Right? I mean, I didn't have any kids. I didn't want any kids. I didn't want anything to do with kids. I mean, it's like, you're in your 20s, and it's like you feel like, at some point, if you don't want kids, if a kid touches you, you're gonna have one all of a sudden. It's like, oh, you're gonna catch a cold, right? And that was kind of like where my head was, and so. But I started seeing such a big need, and it was a couple years after that I had my first child, and that was a life-changing experience for me.
Mm. Yeah, and I suppose it even sort of intensifies the work you're doing to work on development of youth. And so, just speak a little bit about the programs, because I know you've got quite a few. You got sort of summer camps, you got cartoon characters, you've got books, you got a magazine, lots of sort of things branching out to
Right.
support this.
Right. It started with the I Am Defense Institute. It started with the self-defense program, which we did in honor of my aunt. My aunt and my cousin were murdered in a domestic violence situation, and I'd always wanted to do something in their honor. And it was 10 years from the time that my aunt and cousin were murdered to the time that I started the I Am Defense program.
Mm.
And and there was a lot there, right, just in between that, in that process. But we started with I Am Defense, and then we went into Camp Warrior King, because it was Camp Warrior King is a youth development summer camp, right, which exposes kids to activities they normally wouldn't experience during the school year. So you're talking about horseback riding, fishing, teaching them how to shoot, teaching them how to hunt, spelunking, right, anything that we think kids would love. We went from Camp Warrior King to the You Can Have It All youth conferences, because what we noticed is that the kids were doing activities, but there's a certain element of personal development that they weren't getting just in the community, right? Social media, at home, in their neighborhoods. And we noticed that that was a big deal, and it was happening around the globe, that pretty much kids aren't getting youth development or personal development. There's a difference. And most times we don't get it till we're in our 20s or in our 30s when we're starting our careers. But the truth is that they need to get it much younger, because they're getting exposed to the elements of life a lot sooner. So that's where You Can Have It All came from. Then we went to You Can Have It All Youth Magazine, which is a branch to help get that out there, get that motivation out. And then came, Team Hot Sauce, personal development characters, and the Team Hot Sauce success stacks. Yeah, and then we've written a couple books. So we stay busy. I stay busy doing it. Yeah.
Staying busy, man. That's great. That's great.
Yes,
Yeah, it's like, you kind of start from one thing and then grow out from there. And I mean, I think it's a testament to, I suppose, your own creativity, right? Because some people would start one thing and just kind of keep on that. But as you said, there's something in your in your sensibility, like you want it to be in business. So even though you're working with youth development, you bring your business sense to that, right? In terms of what it is to create, to and also I guess seeing the calling, the opportunity for these young, boys and girls, men and young men and women to really have be shown an opportunity for how to develop themselves.
Right, absolutely. I mean, so what I've noticed, there's just such a big need in so many different areas. And so it's, the same line of business, if you will, but it's just supplying different, it's branching off to different needs. How can we reach more youth, right? How can we, because to me, motivation is a universal language. Anybody around the world, no matter where they are, want to be happy, right? And the ultimate motivation is happiness. Right now, people see happiness differently. Some see it as money, some see it as family, some see it as health, right? But the foundation is happiness of some sort, right? Joy. And so motivation is a universal language, which is why we, doing so many different things, like how can we reach different youth, right, and get them interested in being motivated. And yeah, the thing is with so much exposure, so many things going on around the world, they need it earlier, right? You have kids that are exposed to some really horrific things, and if they're not getting any positive on the other side, then they're just kind of going to continue to have this trajectory of, going down this certain road, unless there's something that changes it. And motivation is something that children need daily, right? I mean, you can hear somebody say something positive to you last week, but this week is different. You need it this
Mm,
week, right? So
mhm.
same thing with kids.
And so it's providing the structure for kids that they don't have outside. As you say, I mean, everything's kind of like people usually have one, if not both parents working. If they're in a
Right,
still existent nuclear family, there's
right,
so much pull from social media and all these other things to draw them away from their own capacities.
right.
And so you operate predominantly or exclusively out of Atlanta. Are you expanding beyond that, or?
Well, for the summer camp is in Atlanta. Yes, the
Mhm.
summer camp is in Atlanta. But the magazine, the conference, the stacks, those products go, all over. So
Mm,
the magazine is a digital magazine. It's digital and physical copy. That can go anywhere in the world. The success stacks are in several different languages, so that can go anywhere in the world digitally. It's a lot cheaper that way as opposed to sending everything,
mhm,
physical. We have hard copies of both products, but right now that's pretty much to the continental, U.S. just because of the shipping costs right now.
mhm.
But no, the vision is a worldwide vision for what we're doing.
Yeah, and then like working with local communities, because that's kind of always the difficulty, right? I mean, I've worked with a number of local nonprofit and other organizations, and
Right,
it takes a while to really build up trust and understanding, particularly if you're working with children, right? To
right,
get parents and let alone the kids
right.
to put in their time, investment, and energy into something. Yeah, I mean, that's just curious what the challenges are with that, but what you've done to really deal with those.
Man, there's all kinds of challenges when it comes to working with local municipalities and just getting your foot in the door. Part of the reason why we created our own programs was because there was so much red tape that you would go through just to start that it almost people would lose interest, or it would just take so long it wouldn't be worth it. But from finding locations to do a program to right, because a lot of these programs, they'll have a board, and then the
Mm,
board has to meet. The board
mm,
only meets once a month, right? They have a board meeting and they didn't get to the topic that they were supposed to get to that as it pertains to you. So then that's 2 months down the road. And so the red tape is necessary in a lot of ways, right? Especially when it comes to the safety of the children. At the same time, you find that people just can't make decisions fast anymore. There's a
mm,
whole lot of stuff they got to go through. And so what we wanted to do was, okay, these kids can't wait 6 months for you to decide whether or not you want them to have a development product in your school. We'll just make it available to them outside of their school and allow their parents to make the decision. And
mhm,
so challenges. Oh my goodness, man. I mean, I've had things happen where I've had programs that, right in the middle of doing a camp, for example, they'll come and want to shut it down,
mm,
right? For whatever reason. Oh, you don't have this thing you're supposed to have or whatever. It's something that's really easy to get, but they don't tell you till the last minute. All kinds of challenges and things that you go through. But, when you know that you're doing something right, you keep doing it. And
mm.
our biggest priority is the safety of the children. So there's a lot of things that we end up having to not do just because it's not deemed safe on our side.
And I mean, it sounds like you got quite some interesting activities, horseback riding and
Right,
shooting. I mean,
right,
the shooting always would go because we've got an international audience. People say, "What? You're teaching kids how to shoot?" But anyway, I
right,
mean, it is
right.
within the context of an American society that take it or
Well,
leave it. To
well, check this out, right? So to explain that, especially for anyone that's listening and wondering, okay, so the idea about teaching them to shoot is really all about wildlife conservation. And so what happens is that we teach them how to shoot to teach them how to hunt, right? Teach
Mhm,
them how to hunt. Where they want to hunt deer, or they want to hunt elk, or turkeys or rabbits or whatever. And the idea is that when children get into the wildlife, they realize how valuable it is, how
mm,
important it is to keep it clean, right? Not to litter and throw your trash all over. Why it's important not to, why carbon emission is important, and why it's important not to leave your footprint all
mm,
over the place, right? Because there's wildlife in nature, and even though they're learning how to kill an animal with hunting, the idea is that you're going to eat it, right? So you
mm,
can't shoot anything that you're not going to eat. because we don't want to just aimlessly take a life. But the idea is conservation, is to get the kids into the woods and to learn about conservation. And a lot of kids end up falling in love with just being out in the woods and being connected, because a lot of our kids are in the city, right? They've never seen creeks and streams and rivers and birds. Well, they see birds, but like wildlife birds. Big difference. So yeah, it's about conservation. Yeah. And also about safety. What we've learned is that when a child understands the working of a firearm, they're less likely to just pick one up and to shoot somebody. They're less likely to be curious about it and hurt themselves or hurt someone else, because it's kind of like, oh, it's a pencil, right? I've seen it, right? Kind of thing. Maybe not so much like a pencil, but they're more familiar.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of stories of kids who accidentally discharge firearms because they don't really know how they work.
Yeah.
Like, what ages are you dealing with primarily, or is it a broad range of? Like...
Yeah, it's a broad range. Yeah, so we deal with children ages 5 to 15. Is
okay.
That's our focus for like our summer camps and our youth development stuff. It's primarily 5 to 15. Well, with youth development, 5 to 17. We'll go all the way up to 17 until 18. They're pretty much adults and going to college. But 5 to 15 is a summer camp age. From when they're like 16, 17, they'll come back and start working at the camp or work at the conferences. Yeah, so we still kind of have them involved.
And so there is that sense of, there's kind of a loyalty. Kids like grow up with it and then want to be involved and pass that on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they're I guess taking their own sense of leadership with that.
Sure.
Do you get a lot of flack from kids? I mean, kids can be quite sort of exacting, and it's at some point, you're not quite like me, but at some point you become an old man, right? To stick to the kids.
Yeah, you always get. I mean, they're going to complain about. Kids will complain about anything. I mean, they're having fun. They'll complain that it's too much fun, right? Oh, I have a headache. I'm tired. I'm like, well, you're having a good time. Yeah, but I'm tired of having fun. I want to just go to sleep. I mean, all the time. I mean, all the time you get kids that feel that way. And sometimes what happens, a lot of times they don't want to try something. It's something new. And you'll get the pushback because they're afraid. And then once they try it, right, then it's like, oh, I love this. This was great. And they go in and have a good time. And then they complain that they're tired. And they want to go back. But you always get it. Yeah, you always get it. And sometimes you get it from the parents with some of the activities, because the parents haven't tried it. The parents don't understand. And so what we see now with a lot of our field trips, we'll tell the parents to come along. If this is an activity you're unsure about with your child, you want them to try it, hey, come with us. And a lot of times the parents haven't tried it. So we have a lot of parents that'll come on our field trips. It's extra eyes, right? So it works out a lot well for us watching the kids, and the parents get to participate in the activities. And that really builds up a sense of community. It allows the parents to do an activity with their kid, because a lot of the parents, especially during the summer, I mean, they're working all day long. Their kids are having a good time, but they don't get to do an activity. So the parents will come and do an activity with the kid, and that increases the quality time the parent gets with their kid. So it ends up working out.
Yeah, it's great to stack those, the way that people are interacting with the services, and as you say, bring the parents into it. As well. So tell me, I mean, you did find time to write a few books.
Yes.
As well. So, I mean, you've written, I think, 3 books: Persevere, Overcome, Win, Raising Extraordinary Kids, and Be Unstoppable, Living Life. I'm curious about, I don't have kids, so I'm gonna pass on that one, but I am curious about Be Unstoppable, Living Life. So what's the kind of, how do you be unstoppable?
The idea behind being unstoppable living life goes back to what you and I were just talking about. It's the idea that success is relative, right? Success is relative. So one person's version of success is different than another person's version of success. The idea is that success is a whole pie approach, meaning that, let's take money, for example. Money is one slice of a pie, right? If we look at this whole pie approach. And the idea is that success, one, is relative. So you determine what success is, as opposed to letting society tell you what success is, right? You determine what success is, and then you pick those elements of success, what success is to you, and then you live those things out. And that is being unstoppable living life, because now you're not letting society project onto you what success is. A lot of the things, what we find, with the reason why people are so unhappy, is that they have allowed what society says is successful, right? Our friends, our family, community, to say this is success. And then we're trying to chase those things, only to find out when it's almost too late that none of that stuff meant a hill of beans to you anyway. And it wasn't really important. And that if you could figure out what's really important to you sooner, then you'll live a happier life. So let me give you an example. You have a guy that makes, let's just say a ton of money, right? Because that's he makes all kind of money. He can go around the world when he wants to, buy any kind of suit, right? He can spend all kind of money on his girlfriend, right? But then what he finds out is that he never took care of his health. He never took care of he never spent time with his family and friends. He never took care of his body. He lacks friendships. The career he's in makes a lot of money, but he doesn't enjoy it. So society may say that this guy is successful based on the outward appearance, but he's really not happy. Right. He might like his girlfriend. Maybe she's okay. But I mean, the girlfriend he really wants is something different. But we settle, right? And society, and we chase all these things that society says we should have, when in reality, you really make that choice. And it's being comfortable with making that choice.
Yeah, I mean, it really gets to a lot of what we talk about here on this show, that sense of making those decisions for yourself. And I think for a lot of people, and myself included, there is a sense, we do want this sense of being unstoppable and living our best life and being with the person we want to be and having the career or whatever that's going to make us most fulfilled. And yet we're often not given the tools to even determine what that might look like for ourselves, right? I mean, we're kind of blindly kind of walking around in the dark, hoping that we find something. And I can speak to it myself, but I'm curious, like what your take is on this, because we don't, I really, appreciate the camps and the work you do to help children start to come to that. But here we are, you and I, we're well beyond that. We're adults, living our life, whatever that is. And it's challenging and can be quite scary to think about what that is.
Sure. Absolutely. And give me an example. You think about, society says, okay, weight, for example. Weight is a big deal. You should weigh this much. You should have, your stomach should be flat. You should have this kind of six pack. And even when you're 30s and 40s or 20s, you should look like this, Fabio, muscles bulging out, sexy guy, right? And if you're not that person in your head, then when you go to the beach, you wear a shirt, right? You wear a tie, you wear all this stuff, right? Because you're uncomfortable in your skin with who you are. And then you look over down the beach and you see a guy that's as big as a whale without a shirt on. And he's laid back and he's having a ball and he's enjoying life because he could care less about what society is saying he should look like. That guy is being unstoppable, living life, man. He's not letting the outward world project onto him what happiness is. So then you look at that and you're like, well, man, this guy is 3 times bigger than me. He hadn't have his shirt off. He has his shirt off. Maybe I should take mine off too. Then you take your shirt off and you realize nobody's going to come up and pick on you and tell you that you're fat. Nobody really cares, right? Because everybody's concerned about themselves and how they look. And then there's a sense of freedom in that. And I think that happens at any age. You have the guy that makes a lot of money and realizes that he's not happy in a corporate world, and then goes and does something that he really enjoys and doesn't make as much money, but then his blood pressure goes down, right? He's waking up, he can sleep through the night. He's a lot happier because, those things might have been cool to have, but it wasn't what really made him happy. And so part of being unstoppable, living life, is finding what makes you happy and then embracing that and not being afraid of the negative opinions or kickbacks from other people because they feel like you should be doing something different. It's about taking charge of your own life more than from a financial perspective.
Yeah, I think that sense of taking charge and that sense as well, you were saying, like, nobody's going to come pick you on you, beat you up. And we do have these, like, there is something, quite primal, and it goes back to what you were talking about, with supporting kids as they're growing up, because we automatically go back to, the names we were called when we were
Yep.
5 or 10 or something, and we assume that all that's going to happen again. I mean, I know
Yes.
when I started this podcast, I was terrified of putting my voice out in public. I really assumed that, mobs were going to come with pitchforks and torches and
Right.
and come arrest me for, I don't know, like, a violation of useful expression in the world,
Right.
or something. And of
Right.
course, nobody really paid much notice at all. If, a few friends or family said, congratulations, well done,
Right.
hope it goes well, right?
Right.
And that's about it. And but I do think, like, we often really do struggle with that first voice, because it seems so real, so overimposing, because we may have an experience from when we were 10 or 12 that, our big brother or younger sister did something or said something, or our next door neighbor embarrassed us, and we carry that with us. But, it's like we're carrying something from the past that doesn't necessarily have any relevance to where you are today.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And we do that. I've done it in my life. And what you realize is that most people, when you become adults, they might think it, but they won't say it. Kids will say it, but adults will think it. Whatever, they'll think it, but they won't say it. They'll walk right past you like they don't see it, and they might think, this guy is so and so, but they won't say it, and you don't hear it, so it doesn't really matter. And the thing too is it's really being comfortable, and it takes time, with who cares what people are going to say. Like you said, when you did a podcast, you were concerned about the fact that these people were going to come, and we all have those same concerns, right? It's like, man, what are people going to think when I do this? What's going to be the response? These things that kind of come up in our head. And what I realize is that you have to do it anyway, because if it's something that you really believe in, right, you have to do it, or you're gonna be upset with yourself. I tell people all the time to think about it from a rocking chair experience. You've got to the point in your life where you can't really do it anymore, and that it is a whole lot of stuff. You might not be able to run like you used to. You might not be able to travel like you used to, or do all the things, build businesses or ideas. And you're just sitting on the rocking chair, and sitting in a rocking chair, and it's just you and your thoughts. What things do you want to make sure that you do at that point, right? What regrets do you not want to have, right? Because at that point, you're pretty much you're not done. You're not just getting ready to die, but you're just at that rocket chair moment where you can't do things you used to do. And it's like, gosh, you don't want to say, well, man, I wish I would have just took my shirt off at the beach. I would have had more fun. I would have now I can't go to the beach, or if I go now, it's like, you're gonna burn up or whatever. It's like, what things do you want to make sure that you did to say, man, at least I did it, at least I tried. That when you're alone by yourself and you have those thoughts, that you want to be proud of yourself for going for it, whatever it is. Right. And that's kind of the premise behind the book. That's the premise behind even what I'm trying to do living with my own life now, is making sure that, hey man, that you go for it, and that you really have a sense of happiness, spend time with the people that you really love. If you haven't talked to somebody because you're upset about something they did years ago, forgive them and move on. Right. Just all those things that you go through in life that really kind of hold you back, as opposed to, pushing you forward.
I was talking to somebody recently about a friend who, like, just, broke up with somebody and was talking about a relationship, and she was talking about really holding on to the anger and frustration she had towards this guy, and even said, like, oh, if I saw him on the street, I would, say this and this to him.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, I mean, obviously, like, we have relationships, and people may do right things or wrong things in them, and
Sure.
we can have a response. But I was also thinking, like, wow, like, also you're kind of carrying this, negative energy with you to it. And, there is this, I mean, very sort of Christian, motto phrase, turn the other cheek when somebody does you wrong, and it kind of has been sort of misconstrued as very sort of pacifist and weak concept. But I think there's this sense of, like, really getting to, and it goes to what you were sort of talking about at the beginning, like what are the values that are important to you, right? Because
Right.
if we didn't have those, if we didn't really establish those as a child, and we didn't have programs like yours to really help people make those decisions, and they were just kind of put onto us by society, we have this opportunity to really say, like, okay, well, what are the values? How am I going to live my life in line and in integrity with what's important to me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it's doing that. What values am I going to have? And it's, when you think about it, she walk up to that guy and say, what you did to me, you blankety blank blank, or that really did X, Y, Z. You know what the guy might say? What are you talking about?
Mm,
What, I don't even remember what you're talking about. It's been so long ago, right?
mm,
And so that person has moved on for whatever offense they made, or don't even realize that it bothered you. They've moved on. They've gone on with life. They haven't thought about it, and here you are thinking about it every single day or every week for years and years and years, carrying that offense. And so part of the idea, or my interpretation of the idea, we talked about turning the other cheek. Part of it, in a sense, or somewhere in there, is just letting it go. At some point,
mm,
getting to a place where you let it go, not for them, but for yourself, so that you can be able to move on. It's like drinking poison, but hoping the other person gets sick. It ain't gonna happen, right?
mm,
You're gonna get sick by carrying all that stuff. And part of that is, you know, we're kind of in this place. We're always taught to have some kind of, revenge, or hoping that this person, you're going to get what's coming to you. Well, if they're going to get what's coming to you, you may see it or you may not. But the
mm,
idea is do you want to wake up every day with this frustration or with this weight on your back, when you would much rather be enjoying the time with your kids, or enjoying
mm,
it with a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a lover, whatever, walking your dog, hanging out, in a hammock, getting some fresh air, right? Reading a book, writing a book, all the other cool things you want to do in life, right? Because life, none of us, the one thing that's for certain is none of us know when we're going, for the most
mm,
part.
mm,
Okay. And with that, that means that time is really valuable. That's the most valuable thing we have, is our time. Nobody's
mhm,
figured out how to get it back, right? There's no Benjamin Buttons running around here getting younger. And so, since that's the case, do I want to live my days with any kind of weight on me? I already got
mhm.
weight, right? I already eat too many hamburgers as it is. I don't want any extra weight. So, I think it's that.
Yeah, I mean, I really resonate with that sense of like the extra weight that we carry around, and like you got to process things, whatever you got to deal with. But I think there is this real opportunity to be mindful that whether it's anger, resentment, there's an energy
Yes.
to those emotions, and it's one thing, in my experience, to kind of like live the emotion, right? In a moment, you're angry, you're upset with something, and you let it out, you release it, right? You let it, that emotion, whether it's love, happiness, sadness, anger, to really go through you, but then to be done with it, right? Because what happened yesterday, or last moment, is now gone, and to really be carrying that around as if it's, it's like you're kind of carrying around like, dead water, like that
Right.
doesn't really have life to it anymore. It's weighty, it's stagnant. Is it like, how is that, how is that serving you? I'll just share briefly, because it sort of goes to the point, although it's kind of funny because I can recognize my own limitation in this. When I was, years ago, I was getting divorced, and I could say like my ex-wife treated me poorly, and da da da. Anyway, takes two to tango, and I certainly had my own blame in that. But what I did notice at the time, because there'd been some betrayal, and I realized that when I was dealing with the breakup of with my ex-wife, I still had anger and resentment towards a very good friend of mine who started dating an ex-girlfriend, and very soon after, or while we were still dating, who knows.
Right.
And I realized that I still had all this anger and frustration towards this other person, that like they'd still been together 10 years on. And I realized how much of a waste of energy that was. Now, to my sort of slight detriment, I wanted to take up all my energy and focus my anger and frustration just towards my ex-wife. So I decided to free up my anger and frustration towards my ex-best friend and his then girlfriend or wife. So it's not slightly the most perfect example, but it did show me to really free up the energy I had. And I'd say within a few months, or maybe a little bit longer than that, I did free up all the energy I have towards my ex-wife and wish her the best. And but because it got me to the sense of like, well, if I'm holding on to this sense for this other person that I had this anger for, it was probably like 10 years or something. And I thought, oh, what a waste for this. And eventually, I think even with my ex, I was just like, well, look, I mean, we're not together anymore. And whatever she did or didn't do, and whatever I did or didn't do, like, is it going to help us get back together? If not, let me just use that as learning and move on to where I am here and now.
Right. And it's and it's a challenge to do that depending on what's going on. Right. And I think that for anybody listening, I mean, that's one of the things that I'm sure we're both letting them know. It's like, hey, look, it takes time to get past some of those feelings, some of the things that may be in our way that we don't even realize are in our way at the time. Especially anger and things. I mean, I have used anger so many times to motivate me to work. At times where I was exhausted and tired, and then I would think about something that somebody had done to me that pissed me off or set me back, or I felt set me back in some kind of way. And and that would give me the fuel to get up and to write another paragraph, or to cut out another page, or to analyze something else, or and so there's ways to channel it to be able to get you to push. But I don't know if that is always the best way. I think that at some point, right, a mentor of mine named George Halsey always said you can either build something angry or you can build it excited. And what I've learned is that to build it excited is a lot better for your own mind. Sometimes you just get pissed off. You say, you know what, doggone it, I'm gonna do this and boom, boom, and because of this, and you'll see one day. And then once you get to that point and they see what you did, right now, now what? Right? It's like, right now what? Now that chapter's closed, you still got to have some kind of motivation to keep going. And so, part of like, I love how you took the situation with your friend, and then then you channeled it over here, and then eventually you're like, man, I'm past it all. And that's life. That's how it happens. But it takes time.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, well, I mean, anger can come through you, and then what do you do with it, right? So there's this opportunity to kind of really give into it, as you say, kind of use it effectively. Like, there's an energy there. Like, I mean, anybody who's been angry, right? There's this kind of surge of energy, and you're just like ready to do something with it, and to put it into something that you love, that motivates you. It's better than using it as a negative thing. But I do really, it's a nice sentiment, that sense of doing something because you're excited rather than angry. The things that I've accomplished, when I'm excited about it, that, as you say, they stay, right? So the motivation is there, and it builds.
Right. It absolutely does. I mean, an example of that, you think so. Cam Newton, right, American football player. Got cut from the Carolina Panthers a year or so ago, went to the Patriots, got cut from the Patriots, went back to the Carolina Panthers. This weekend, he scored a touchdown, and he said, I'm back, right? And you could tell that when he said it, it was a whole lot of anger, and he was teed off about it, about the way he had been done. Well, now he scored the touchdown. Now he's back. And the question is now what? Right? Because you can either keep that anger and keep using that to go to the playoffs or do whatever, but at a certain point, it's going to come to a point where you've received satisfaction from whatever it is that you wanted to get from it. And now there has to be a different motivation, right? So sometimes people can call it anger, others might call it passion. And so when you're passionate about something, then you have to constantly fuel that passion and figure out ways to fuel that passion, because even with excitement, sometimes you're excited about a project and then you hit a wall a couple of times, you get burnt out and you're tired. Yeah. You have to figure out what's going to get you up to keep going.
Yep. And that's, like we were talking about, values and what it is that's important to you. And I think, like, just goes back to what you're talking about with the youth development, right? To help children establish what is important to them. Because I was just thinking, whether it's football players or pop stars, right? There's so much out there that kids are exposed to, where they look at these people as role models, and sometimes, realistically or legitimately so, but oftentimes there can be, people that are at a certain level of attainment, right? Rather because they're, a multi-platinum singing pop star, or they're a multi-millionaire quarterback, and we don't often see the exposure of all the people that are below that, right? The people that did very well at a university but then didn't get drafted to the NFL, who have a beautiful voice but didn't quite make the contract, right? And there often is a slight, often a very significant disconnect, particularly in American culture, because there's so much divide between the people that are at that level, and so they can start to lose touch with even their own humility about like what's actually important, right? So you can say, like, get angry about not being, because I'm sure that athlete. I mean, Cam. I mean, he's a fantastic athlete, but if he's operating from a sense of anger rather than passion or excitement, how are you dealing with that, particularly with the kids that you deal with, because they're looking to what it means. Like they want to quote unquote succeed in life, and society and social media is telling them this is what it means. This is how you do it, and And I don't know that you're necessarily tearing down those walls, but you are probably saying, well, is that true? Is that your truth, right? Maybe that is, but is it really your truth? And how do you determine that?
Right. You're absolutely right. And what we do with youth is to get them to find their motivation, right? So what is it that motivates you? I truly believe that, your pop star, your celebrity is, when you think about levels of influence, should be, kind of on the outside, right? So a pop star should not be the first person that a kid admires and respects. It should, right, or wants to duplicate or emulate. That person should be number 4 or 5 or 6 down the line, because they can't talk to them on a daily basis. They don't know really if they're really motivated, or what they're motivated about, or what their motives are, right? Motivation, the root word is motive, right? What's really driving them? You really don't know. And so what they know is the behavior and the result of the behavior they're seeing. And so for kids, that's really dangerous, because kids don't understand, right? One of the issues with certain types of music, for example, is the music is putting out things that say, I'll shoot you. I'm going to sell these drugs. I'm going to take your woman. All these negative things that, if it really happened in real life, your life would be a wreck. But the kid doesn't realize that. What they see is, they hear that music, and then they see the Bentley, they see the private jet, they see all the fancy clothes. And so they want to emulate that, because they don't know any better. The reality is that the person that maybe didn't become a professional star, but ended up actually having a very successful life, successful in the sense of whole pie, right? Just more than just money, is a better person to emulate. But then even that person isn't. The person that they should be emulating first and foremost are the people that are taking care of them. Is right, or it's what they should be doing. If that person is the I don't want to say the right kind of role model, but we'll just say acceptable role model, and what generally an acceptable role model should be somebody positive. It should be somebody that they're closest to, because if I can emulate my dad, for example, I can talk to him, I can ask questions. I have his DNA, so I'm more like him than anybody else. My dad will know what bothers him 9 times out of 10 may bother me the same way, and how to get around that. Right, that's part of. So all those different aspects make the parent or the guardian the better person to emulate, and then you kind of spiral out from there. After the parent or guardian might be a coach, right? A basketball, football, baseball, whatever, or an activity, or a church leader, or whatever. And that's kind of how it should happen, so that the kid is able to see the lifestyle a little bit better. Because, I mean, how many people are going to be football stars? And then the ones that are playing football, 80% of them are ending up broke. So you really don't want to be that person anyway. You just think you do. So what we talk about is them finding their own motivation. What is it that motivates you? Okay, you want to be a basketball player. Why? Is it
Mm.
because you truly love to play basketball, or because you see LeBron James and you think it's cool, right? Why do you want to do what you're doing? Do you really love it? Oh man, I'm in love with this. Then you'll play basketball whether you're a superstar or not. You might
Mhm.
always play basketball. You may not make money from it, but you'll always play it because you love it. It's finding that passion that they're really excited about.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, really, really important and valuable. And how so like you said, this happens outside of school. How do you interact with the school environment, or maybe with church environment?
I interact with them. It depends on what's going on. So the our martial arts program has predominantly been in schools. So that's been great for us because it builds a sense of community, because the parents are there, the teachers are there, the principals are there, of course, youth are there. So we're able to, sometimes you'll get a teacher that says, "Hey, look, we're bringing this kid to you because we think this will really be good for him. He needs a confidence, he needs a discipline, blah 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 blah." So that really works with church organizations. When we interact with them, it's more from an event standpoint, where I'm going to speak or going to do something like that, and so we don't get as many opportunities to interact with the youth on that perspective. When we do our youth conferences are real high energy. We're pumping out motivation to the youth, getting them believing in themselves, doing workshops, because I believe in doing workshops and getting kind of more of a grassroots approach,
Mhm.
and not just standing up on the stage and saying, "Hey, you can do this," but having an opportunity to say, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And
Mm.
then say, "Okay, well, yeah, and hey, this is how you can do that." More of a grassroots approach, and that's what camp really does. That's what makes it really fun. Is that camp is really grassroots. We go on these field trips together. I have fun just like the kids do, and they're able to see adults or young adults around that are doing the right things, from a motivational standpoint or from a leadership standpoint, to make them really good role models.
Mm. And what do you think, as a parent and as somebody who's leading this organization,
Mhm.
what do you think the biggest challenge is for for children in particular? Like you and I have grown into adults, right? And we're making our own
Right,
decisions, good, bad, or indifferent.
right.
But yeah, I mean, children today growing up, and what are the biggest challenges they face?
The biggest challenges that children face today is influence.
Mm.
Influence is a big one. Influence, exposure, and confidence.
Hmm.
So, and influence and exposure kind of go hand in hand, because influence, it's who are they seeing that they admire, and what are those people telling them? What are they saying? And they may not be telling them directly, but what are they saying? For example, music is a big deal, and now influencers are a big deal, right? What are those influencers saying to your child
Mm.
indirectly? So
Mm.
if your child that if your child likes a particular influencer, and that influencer's behavior doesn't line up with your core beliefs as a parent, but you're letting your kid watch that influencer on a regular basis, then you're going to have a challenge at some point, because it's going to come to a head where the person they really admire and love, they think is saying, "Hey, you should be this kind of person," based on their
Mm.
actions, but you want them to steer in a different direction because as a parent, you know what's going on in the world. The influencer doesn't have any accountability, so they can say and do whatever because that's how they make their living,
Mm.
right? And so but your child is caught in the middle. Exposure. What are they seeing? What are they seeing? Whether it's on social media, because social media is neither good or bad. It just is, right. And so what we choose makes it good or bad. But then you have school. What are they being exposed to at school? What are they being exposed to in their community? What are they being exposed to at home? That's critical because,
Mm.
for example, child abuse. A child that sees abuse in their home is more likely to be abusive than a child that doesn't, right? What are they being exposed to? And then the other one is confidence. So many children lack confidence. They have a poor self image because, again, the same thing we're talking about. because what they're seeing out in society is the exact opposite of who they are a lot of times. If a kid is overweight, they see somebody that's their age and they're super, super skinny, and then all the kids are talking about them. Or they want to play basketball, but they can't shoot a shot, right? It's so then their confidence gets affected. Well, when your confidence is affected at a young age and it's never dealt with, the chances of you getting, to where you want to be becomes more challenging, right?
Mm.
Because it just kind of compiles.
Mm. And I mean, you guys specifically, I think with the cartoon characters, the Team Hot Sauce, deal with confidence, right? And so that's something that you specifically look at. And I mean, how do kids respond? I'm sort of so lost from this concept of like, and I think back to my own youth, like I wasn't particularly popular, so I developed confidence because I was on the outside, and just got relatively comfortable with that.
Right.
But I didn't have a father figure around. I didn't have any of that guidance. I guess the other question I have, because it just reminds me, it's like, we were sort of saying this at the beginning, but as an adult, anything you try to take to kids and youth is going to be met with some level of resistance, because it's like, that's the adult speaking, we're not interested, right? And so, like, do you try to work with influencers or sports figures or something to back up, like to support the message? Like, what's the mechanism to get to these aspects of exposure and influence and confidence with kids?
What we do, several things. One is, so for example, with the youth magazine, what makes the youth magazine cool is they're seeing other kids their age doing things that they can do as well. So we're using kids their age, right, to get that message across, as opposed to, here is a 25-year-old success story. We use those as well. But what's really cool is when you can see another 9-year-old doing what it is that you want to do, and and they're a regular kid. So we definitely use young adults and kids as a way to influence, because influencers work. It's just you picking the right one for the appropriate age group. Uh, Another thing is fun, right? The thing is that kids respond to fun. Anything that's cool and fun, they will respond to, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It because it's a matter of, yeah, that's cool. Oh, okay. We'll go roller skating, and I'll roller skate with the kids at the camp. Now, granted, when I fall, it's a much bigger laugh when I fall than when they fall, and it hurts, and it hurts a lot more when I fall as opposed to when they fall. But when you're engaged in doing the fun things with them, they'll listen, and so it's fun, and it's finding those right influencers in their age bracket that are giving a positive message you want the kids to hear.
I suppose, as you say, engaging with them. So there's always this opportunity to, to try to be relevant.
Sure.
I mean, that's the sort of like, how relevant can you be? But of course, on some level, I mean, kids do want guidance and look to somebody for what it, like, kids aren't stupid, right? So they do have a sense of what it means to grow up, and the choices that, on some level, the choices that they have to make.
It's as far as relevance, it's a sense where, how relevant can you be, and then how relevant do you want to be, right? Because for example, the music or some of the things you see now, you can't believe either they're saying or that you're seeing it. So there's a certain amount of relevance that you kind of don't want to have. And I talk to them always going back and forth debating with the kids about whose music is better. And so I'll go back all the way to the 60s and 70s and talk about how, what our music was better, and why this music all the way back here is better. And they say, why? I said, because we can understand what they're saying. First of all, I said, we can break down what those words are. And we go back and forth all the time. There's a certain amount of kind of being out of their generation that makes it cool to the kids. And then there's a certain amount of being, of trying the things in their generation that makes it cool. For me, I've decided to pick an age that I like and just kind of stick with it. So I'll be 24, 25 until I'm about 70, just because I feel like it's a mental thing, right? But with the kids, it's just a lot of times meeting them on their level, if you can, because children are people. Hey, if a kid is upset, they're upset, and sometimes dealing with the upset kid is easier than dealing with an upset adult. They'll communicate better, right? It's not as many layers to get to peel off. But a lot of times it's just meeting them on their level.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think I think that's true for any of us. It just kind of um, gets to me, this sense we often bring in our own sense of what's right or appropriate, and actually assuming that maybe we don't know, and that the person across from us has something to show us, to teach us, to give us that is new,
Right.
um, opens a door for connection.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And I think kids, there was always this sense as a child, as a young adult, that if somebody was willing to be real, then you're willing to give them a little bit of slack, even if they
Right.
they, they don't listen to the same music, or they dress
Right.
weird, or whatever. But and a lot of that has to do with a willingness to like be open about like what you've gone through and struggle, right? Because
Absolutely.
goes to that confidence, like I don't have any problem now talking about the things that have challenged me, that have set me back, that have limited my progress, or whatever, success, or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
because I don't see that it defines me in any way. I mean, if I can learn from it, I'm quite interested in it, and yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's just kind of where I ended up anyway.
Hey, that's fine. No, I definitely understand. I mean, that's part of the wisdom and being able to talk to young adults, is that you've gone through enough things that when you talk to them, you can be more transparent, right?
Mm,
You can say, hey, I understand. I've went through that. I understand that, and this is how I dealt with it. The one of the biggest things with youth, I think, is just to listen. As adults, we don't listen enough. I think that we want to prescribe all the time, especially when you start to get teenagers. They feel like they know it all. They know enough, and really, they just know enough to be dangerous to themselves or to anybody else around them. And but what we see is that listening to them is a really big deal, and giving them a safe environment to be able to enjoy themselves is a big deal. This past summer at camp, our largest group of kids were the teenagers. And that's really surprising because normally at a camp, teenagers don't want to come at all, right? They're like, I'm too cool for this camp stuff. But, we had hundreds of kids that were teenagers, and they really had a good time because what they were missing was socialization. They had been inside for over a year and a half, 2 years. They hadn't seen anybody else that really looked like them for long, and they got to be in an environment where there were tons of them. And one of the things at our camp, I have 4 rules: respect, discipline, encourage each other, and have fun. Those are the 4 rules at the camp. So you can't be at the camp and be that person that's going to be picking on everybody and making somebody feel bad, because they're not going to want you there, right? You can't be that person that doesn't have any discipline, because I'm not going to allow you to be there, right? You can't
mhm,
be there and be an undisciplined person. I require the parents to pay for camp. Part of the reason why I do that is because it ensures their child's going to have some discipline, because the parents have skin in the game. I am a
mm,
firm believer that if you're going to buy your child, $200 pair of sneakers, that you can afford to have to put them in a camp somewhere. Encourage each other. It's a place where the camp isn't perfect, right? But we want to
mhm,
create this sense that there's a place they can come to where they're not going to get picked on, that they can have friends and be themselves, and it's okay to just be you. If you want to wear purple hair, wear purple hair. Hey, it's totally cool. If you want to, you want to wear some weird clothing or whatever, that's cool. Weird is great. Be weird. Weird is
mm,
because weird is being unique.
mm,
And we've pushed away and say, okay, well, this kid is weird and that kid's weird. No, that kid's just being who they are. And it's okay for them to just be who they are. Let them figure out their own path in life. And then to have fun, right? It's a rule. You got to have fun at camp. And if you're not having fun, let's figure out why you're not having fun. Okay, you're not making friends. Okay, hey, hey, Taylor, come over here, man. And hey, meet Shaun. Taylor says Shaun. Shaun says Taylor. All right, Taylor's going to be your friend the rest of the day. Taylor says, all right, man, hey, come on, let's go have a good time. And then they go and have fun, right? And that's kind of what we're creating. And it doesn't last all year, right? But just in this moment in time, they can come to a place where they're gonna be respected. They're going to have some discipline. The kids around them are going to have discipline. They're going to be uplifted. They're not going to be talked about, and they're going to have a good time. And that's kind of what we do to kind of get through the kids.
That's beautiful, man. I love this sense. It's like, it's a rule. You have to have fun.
You gotta have fun. It's a rule. You gotta have fun.
You are not abiding by rule number 4. Go out there and have some fun.
Go out there and have some fun, man. Go figure it out. What's fun to you? And they'll say, I just want to, I don't want to go play basketball. I just want to play, right? I want to be able to draw. Or I want to be able to be on my tablet. I'm like, okay, well, you can't necessarily be on your tablet, but if you want to draw, cool, you can draw. Hey, sit over here and draw. You don't want to play basketball? Fine, draw. And they'll draw. And then other kids are over here. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. That's really nice. I really like the compactness of that, and it really shows how much you've put into this as a sense of how to run this as a business and how to make an impact on people. Yeah, really hats off to you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, man. It's been really awesome having you on today. Like, I've really enjoyed the conversation. We've had some fun, had some laughs. Yeah. Sometimes laughing at our old selves, but bringing youth into it. So really appreciate having you on today, Shaun. Wish you the best continuing success with all of your youth activities. The Camp Warrior King, what's the name of the magazine? Is
You Can Have It All.
You Can Have It All, right? Of course, that's the conference and the magazines.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
well, there's information in the show notes if people want to reach out to you. And I, again, just say it's a real pleasure to have you on, and just to see, it's like, because it goes to this sense as well about, like you were saying, like it's never something you imagine doing, but I think as you got into it, you realize like you have a passion, you have an interest. So the things we often are the best at, like we may not even necessarily see them in a particular way of doing things, but it unfolds for us.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely my story. I had no passion working with kids, didn't have a background really in doing it besides working at a couple summer camps as a teenager. It was not something that I wanted to do, but now it's like, it's the bee's knees for me, man. I mean, I enjoy it. I look forward to camp like the kids do, because I get to go on all the field trips as well. It's like I get to go hiking and be out in the woods and do all this cool stuff. And it just makes it a lot of fun, right? And so that goes back to what we're saying and just what you said. I mean, people normally don't find their passion as something that they wanted to do initially or thought they could do it. But when you find what it is that you truly love doing, there's no greater feeling in the world. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. I mean, I deal with challenges all day long with my business, but it makes it easier to do it. It makes it a little bit easier to do it when you see some of the fruits of your labor, and those fruits being, the results of, a kid, getting a better grade in school, interacting better at home with their parents, those kinds of things. It really makes a difference.
Yeah. And I think, as you say, everything you do, whether you love it or not, you have challenges, but if you love it, then you have that, right?
Right. You have that. At least you have that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Shaun, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and wish you the best continued success.
Man, thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it.